consider. Hasn't started yet. This is the pre-thing to the music.
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
Need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know. Let's hold that with money. Hold on.
Thank you.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru, Uhuru, everybody, and welcome to this event tonight, this very, very important event, Jews Against Colonialism, sponsored by the African People's Solidarity Committee and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. This is an event that calls on Jewish people and all white people to stand against colonialism and the colonial mode of production, and to stand in solidarity with African, Palestinian, and all oppressed and colonized peoples on this planet who are winning, and who the future of the true revolutionary struggle in the world is being led by African people and the colonized peoples here and around the world. I want to salute my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, leader of the African Revolution, and to say that the African People's Solidarity Committee is a cadre organization of white people organized 47 years ago by the African People's Socialist Party, and under their leadership and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is our mass organization. So, we welcome you here tonight. And we call on you to participate, and there will be discussion and chat, and to open up our minds and be able to begin to see the world as it really is. So I salute again Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has taught me and us in the Solidarity Movement how to understand the world, to begin to see the world through the eyes of the African working class and the oppressed and colonized peoples on the planet Earth. I want to salute Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela, who is known as the architect of the Black Power Blueprint, and who leads the entire political economy of the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement, and just has done an amazing and brilliant job. I want to salute the entire African People's Socialist Party, African people here inside the US, in Africa, in Europe, and other places around the world, fighting for the unification and liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. I salute Chair Mwezi Odom, who leads the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa Fight Back Coalition. And of course, we give our deepest salute to the heroic Palestinian people who are on the front lines of a fierce and brilliant and brave and courageous liberation struggle against the brutal US-backed Israeli state. And we pledge our solidarity with their struggle to liberate Palestine from the river to the sea, and to throw off the US-backed illegitimate settler colonial state of Israel. And we also want to salute comrades Nancy Mansour, Mona Albayami, and others who are an important part of the Hands Off Uhuru coalition. I want to just take a minute also to salute Leonard Peltier, who is 80 years old and who is a political prisoner, an indigenous man who fought for the liberation of the indigenous people whose land this is, and who has spent nearly 50 years in prison for fighting for freedom for the indigenous people, for the rightful owners of this land. And we should be outraged to know that he has been locked down most of the time in solitary confinement in such a brutal and vicious way. For all these years, he must be free. And we salute our comrades who are part of the Hands Off Uhuru Bite Back Coalition, Comrade Jennifer, Paulette, and Dawn. And just to say that our commitment to solidarity with the national liberation of the indigenous people is profound, and that you can go to www.leonardpeltiermatters.com to see Leonard Peltier's beautiful artwork and order some. We also want to salute a very important member of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, Comrade Ralph Pointer, who has been just such an important part of the Black is Back Coalition and a lifelong fighter for freedom and liberation for African people, who passed away just a few days ago. And just salute Comrade Betty Davis and Ralph's family and all those who have known him, which we had the ability and honor to meet him in the Solidarity Committee through the Black is Back Coalition, led by Chairman Omali Yeshitela and founded by the chairman. So just really wanted to salute Comrade Ralph Pointer. I also want to welcome our comrade, the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jesse Neville, and who's going to be talking to us about why Jewish people, Jews, must support the Palestinian struggle, must unite with that, must fight against and stand against the settler colonial Israeli US-backed government, and must fight Zionism and colonialism. And that Jesse has adapted Chairman Omali Yeshitela's analysis on this question that the chairman has been putting out for over 40 years and more, 50 years and more, and been putting it out in a really powerful way. And now we are beginning to see many other Jewish people, white people, saying that they refuse to be intimidated refuse to accept that the terms that they would be anti-Semitic for criticizing Israel, criticizing colonialism and Zionism, and standing with the Palestinian people. And again, I want to welcome Chairman. I want to welcome you, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and just to say that the chairman has fought for the ideas in theory and practice in pursuit of the African Revolution for more than 50 years. The chairman has changed the world. He has influenced the things that we understand today. The chairman has been for more than 40 years and often the singular voice who raised up the demand for reparations to African people, who held the first tribunal on reparations to African people in 1982, who had a goal to make reparations a household word, which indeed it is today, and took it to the masses of African people, which it has been embraced by the African working class in such a powerful way. And the chairman has also always made the struggle that we have to fight colonialism, not racism. We can't just fight the mere ideas in white people's heads. We have to stand in solidarity with the right of African and all oppressed people to fight the state power, which functions in our name as white people, as the colonizer nation, to attack and suppress and repress the African people here inside the borders of the United States, indigenous people, and African, Palestinian, and oppressed peoples around the world. And that we have to embrace and understand that we have to fight this entire infrastructure of the state and the reality that the chairman has defined as the colonial mode of production, which says there is nothing There is nothing that we have that is not drenched in the blood of African, indigenous, and colonized peoples. They are the colonized, we are the colonizers. And this affects how we function in the world, how we see the world, and everything that we think about ourselves. And this colonial system must go. Again, the chairman taught me and us in APSC to see the world as it really is through the eyes of the African working class, through the political understandings and theory of African internationalism. And I want to say that what I have learned from Chairman Omali Yeshitela is that African people are going to be free, that this is not a movement to make colonialism more palatable. This is a movement to overturn this social system built on assault, built on plunder, rape, theft, on violence, on the blood, sweat, and forced labor and freedom of African people, on indescribable violence on this land that belongs to the indigenous people, of genocide and the theft of indigenous land into the hands of white people, which we are sitting on right now. African people are going to be free. This is a revolutionary movement. Africa is going to be liberated. As the chairman has said, all 12 million square miles of Africa and all the resources that belong to African people are going to be in the hands of African people. This is what the chairman has worked for, and the African People's Socialist Party represents. Everything that the party does has this goal, and the chairman created the tactics and strategy for liberation back in 1977 that lays out all of the international relationships that African people have, all of the solidarity that it expresses with oppressed and colonized peoples around the world, all the work the party does, the dual and contending power, all of this has one goal, is part of an entire strategy to win and liberate Africa, to unite African people everywhere under the leadership of the African working class. So this murderous system has to go. Indigenous people must and will have their land back, and colonized people will be free. This is the inevitable course of history that we see, the trajectory that we see and are experiencing before our very eyes today. And the Palestinian people are fighting brilliantly. And from all reports, all true reports, even the New York Times is now starting to have to say this: Israel can't win. The Palestinian people will win. They are winning. And the Palestinian people will win. But US imperialism, the colonial mode of production, and its minions, including the state of Israel, must go. Because when the Palestinian people win, as we see with Cuba, with Venezuela, with Nicaragua, all of whom fought brilliantly and won militarily against US-backed governments, but then the US can invade them, boycott them, sanction them, starve them, send covert troops to destabilize them, just as they have done and are doing with Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. The US has to go. And this is what it carries out every single day in its colonial violence against African people right here inside the US. This is where we see colonialism in its raw state, but we cannot allow this to be normalized. We can't walk over the bodies of African people that we see this suffering, this colonial violence perpetrated in our name against African people every single day right here to get to Palestine. It is one world struggle. And because, as the chairman has said, the assault on African people is the original sin of colonial capitalism and the basis for the colonial mode of production, because Africa has been plundered since the 1400s for the benefit of white people, for 600 years, and because Africa and its resources are still plundered and controlled in the most vile ways by colonial powers, because African people have been kidnapped, turned into commodities for sale, and enslaved with their forced labor, with the white people having the total power of life and death over African people for hundreds of years. The African struggle, African people have been forcibly dispersed, as the chairman said, around the world, that African people lead the way. The African liberation struggle is the key struggle that represents the interests of all oppressed and colonized peoples and white people ourselves. This is the leading force in the revolution. When African people are free and throw off this colonial state, the US can't continue to exist at the same time, in the same context, with a liberated Africa and a united African people. This is what the African People's Socialist Party is working for. So we are saying that the existence of the African People's Solidarity is heroic and historic, because it is the first time in history that an African liberation organization formed a white organization and has led it for almost 50 years, sending white people into the white community to forward the party's strategy to win the African Revolution as African internationalists and to raise reparations. We're part of the strategy of the party to win the African Revolution. So this is an incredible period, and there has been just the entire history of the African People's Socialist Party and the African Liberation Movement have stood with the Palestinian people. And certainly that has been true in the history of the African People's Socialist Party. Currently, the African People's Socialist Party, though, comrades, is under a serious attack by the colonial state. Chairman Omali Yeshitela is being targeted, along with Comrade Jesse and myself, as part of the assault on the party. And this is because Chairman Omali Yeshitela has been the voice that has kept alive the African Revolution, that developed and fought for the understandings of reparations to be a household word, and defined this question of colonialism and the unity of all African people around the world and of all oppressed and colonized peoples. This must end, and US imperialism and the colonial mode of production must end. And we see that everybody now is talking about colonialism. You didn't hear that even a few years ago, but the chairman was the sole voice out there talking about defining the understanding of colonialism from the very beginning. One of the very first pamphlets that the African People's Socialist Party wrote was on colonialism, the main problem facing African people today. The chairman has raised the question of the African Revolution as the central question in the world today. And the colonial state has indicted Chairman Omali Yeshitela for his speech. He faces, and we also face, 15 years in prison. This is a life sentence for Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Right now, we are under the control of basically a parole officer. It's called a pretrial officer. They took our passports. We have to get permission to travel. We have to call in to these people every week. They want to silence the chairman, and they want to silence the voice of genuine solidarity from white people who stand with the African Revolution, the Palestinian Revolution, and solidarity with the anti-colonial struggle of the world. They want to silence the only voice of the African Revolution and genuine international solidarity. And just as the US has always stated that it tries to silence the African Revolution and sees it as, quote, the greatest internal threat to the stability of the US government. And that the African Revolution has faced a brutal counterinsurgency that assassinated the leaders, that imprisoned, that destroyed, that slandered, that did everything possible to destroy the ability of the African Revolution to rise up and be successful. And Chairman Omali Yeshitela has single-handedly fought against that, and push back this counterinsurgency. And we cannot allow this vicious state to silence Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement. If the chairman is put in prison, if the chairman's voice is silenced, we will have no freedom of speech in this country anymore. We can guarantee that. I'm calling on people to listen to join what is being discussed tonight. Do not accept the normalization of colonial violence against Palestinian people and against African people and indigenous people. It is not normal. It is not right for us to say this is just how it is. We cannot accept that. We have to take on our role, a strategic role, fighting under the leadership of the African Revolution in our court, inside the belly of the beast. So stand on the side of the anti-colonial free speech, the right of African people, the right of the Palestinian people, the right of Cuban, Venezuela, and all oppressed peoples to fight for their true liberation and unity with all oppressed peoples on this planet. We live in a time, comrades, when there is no security for the colonizers. We can see that. The oppressed peoples of the world and inside the borders of the United States are on fire. The party has built real programs for power in their hands, revolutionary dual power, fighting towards the African Revolution, the fierce resistance of African and indigenous and colonized peoples. This is the leadership that will and is transforming this world. We are here to call on Jews and all white people, stand with your own future under the leadership of the African Revolution. If you are in the borders of the United States, the best way to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people is to stand in solidarity under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. The chairman and the African People's Socialist Party is working and resisting and organizing every single day. The colonized are winning. Join the winning side. We are white people under their leadership. Become a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Join Jews Against Colonialism. Join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And support and join Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, Free Palestine. African people will be free. Reparations to African people, white solidarity with Black Power, Uhuru. Uhuru, and I want to bring up, I believe, if somebody could let me know, I'm sorry, I don't have the program opened. Are we bringing
Jesse's
up Norman? Oh, Jesse. Okay, Uhuru, Comrade Jesse. And just really want to salute you and all the tremendous work that you have done and put out repeatedly in so many different events, why Jewish people must stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and with the African Revolution. So just really appreciate your presentation and welcome to this event, powerful event tonight, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you. Thank you so much, Chairwoman Penny Hess. And thank you to everybody who is who's tuning in and who's participating in this important event tonight. I'm very honored to be here. And I just really want to salute that brilliant opening presentation from Chairwoman Penny. And I also want to welcome Comrade Dalal, who joined us here in person. Many people are tuning in online due to the weather here in St. Louis right now. We've got some snow going on, but we do want to appreciate making the effort to be here in person tonight, as well as Comrade Amanda here. And I want to profoundly salute the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party, and just reiterate what Chairwoman Penny Hess just said. And that statement speaks for me and speaks for all of us who are members of the African People's Solidarity Committee and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, that we are the organization of white people under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, with the assignment to go back into the white community and build solidarity with the African Revolution. And this organization would not even exist if not for the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party. And as Chairwoman Penny has said, everything I'm about to say is based on a message that the chairman has been putting out in general, but also specifically to Jews for 50 years. And I came into contact with this organization about 14 years ago. And it was early on back then that I first heard the powerful message that Chairman Omali Yeshitela was delivering to those of us with a Jewish background on our responsibility to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and with all colonized and oppressed peoples. And I also want to salute Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshitela for her incredible, brilliant leadership in the African People's Socialist Party and all of the members and leaders of the African People's Socialist Party worldwide. And again, I want to acknowledge Chairwoman Penny Hess, my direct leadership in the African People's Solidarity Committee, who has been doing this work under the leadership of the party for 47 years, since the founding of the African People's Solidarity Committee in 1976, fighting to build reparations, fighting to build genuine white solidarity with Black power, and who also wrote this book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, which I will be referring to a few times in this presentation. So this presentation is to speak to this question of Jews against colonialism. And everything that we present tonight, again, is based on the understandings of African internationalism developed by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, which is important for us to say, not just because it gives credit to where the ideas come from, but because it makes the point that this discussion tonight is not abstract. It is tied to a strategy to forward the struggle led by the African working class and colonized peoples of the world to overturn colonialism under the leadership of the African Revolution. Jews against colonialism is a call by the African Revolution for white people, for the Jewish sector of the white population, to abandon the traditional opportunism that has characterized our community in this country, in Europe, in what's called Israel today, for the past 75 or more years, where the majority of us have been complicit, active collaborators or beneficiaries of the colonial settler state of Israel and its brutal occupation of Palestine. Today, the ground is shaking beneath our feet. October 7th was just one example of something profound that is happening in the world. The anti-colonial struggles of the oppressed peoples have forced a profound shift in the conversation, even among Jewish people in the United States. The Jewish consensus on Israel is forever ruptured. We have seen thousands of Jews come out to protest to say no more genocide in our name, causing great panic for the colonial establishment. The question that the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela challenges us to face in this event tonight, however, is how do we go beyond protest? How do we go beyond sympathy and well-wishing towards a genuine, principled stand of anti-colonial solidarity with the Palestinians, with Africans, with indigenous people, and all colonized peoples who are fighting for liberation? As the horrors inflicted by the Israeli state continue to intensify in Gaza and the West Bank, and the Palestinian people courageously fight back, I would like to start off by stating that as the African People's Solidarity Committee, Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jews Against Colonialism, we have complete unity with the position of our leadership, the African People's Socialist Party, which has always stood in unity with the struggle of the Palestinian people for national liberation. We are completely and unequivocally opposed to the Israeli state. We recognize that while this government of Israel calls itself the Jewish state, it is in fact, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela says, an illegitimate white nationalist colonial settler state built on stolen and occupied Palestinian land, modeled in every way on the settler states of Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, Canada, and indeed the United States of America. All of the land currently known as Israel is land that belongs to the Palestinian people. From the river to the sea, every last millimeter. On October 7th, when the Palestinians broke through the cage of the open-air prison known as the Gaza Strip, the US ruling class media reported that the quote, the Palestinians had invaded Israel. But we are clear, Israel is occupied Palestine, and it is impossible for a Palestinian to invade Palestine. It is their land. The state of Israel was founded in 1948, which means that my father is older than the state of Israel. As Jews, like most people in this country, we are indoctrinated to believe that the colonial settler state of Israel was founded in 1948 in order to prevent a second Holocaust after the killing of 6 million Jews in Europe by Nazi Germany. This twisted explanation for the Israeli genocide against the Palestinians has prompted our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, to famously observe that the Palestinian people had nothing to do with the Nazi Holocaust. The chairman has asked if the Jewish state was necessary as a form of reparations and justice from Germany for its crimes against the Jews, why not take Frankfurt or Berlin? Why should Palestinians have to pay for the crimes of white people in Europe? The answer, of course, as we learned from the chairman, is that the creation of the Jewish state was not truly done to heal the trauma of Jewish suffering, or as part of a struggle to protect Jews from the violence of European white power. The political Zionist project was devised by a sector of secular, atheist, petty bourgeois European Jews with the full support of colonial white power and the imperialist governments of that era as an avenue through which a sector of the European Jewish population could integrate into European imperialism to advance our own interests within the colonial mode of production at the expense of the Palestinian people in a system built on the backs of African people. A cursory glance at the history of Zionism, the ideology created to justify the theft of Palestine, reveals that the Zionist invasion into Palestine began decades before Adolf Hitler had even learned to walk. And yet the Nazi killing of Jews is still upheld as the primary justification for the creation of a Jewish settler state in Palestine. Those of us who are exposed to Zionist indoctrination, which is not just Jews, which is most people in this country, are taught the colonial lie that the Zionist settlers arrived in an empty Palestine, a land without a people for a people without a land, they say, who made the desert bloom. The truth is that the Zionist settlers, European Ashkenazi Jews, came to Palestine with the support of British imperialism, stole a thriving and beautiful land at gunpoint, carried out what the Palestinians refer to as al-Nakba, the catastrophe, the slaughter of over 15,000 Palestinians between 1947 and 1949, the expulsion of over 800,000 Palestinians, the destruction of over 500 villages, all the while chanting, "Never again." It is the position of the African People's Socialist Party that as Jews, we have to be absolutely clear that we are for the total emancipation of Palestine and the right of the Palestinian people to free their land. We say no to the settler colonial state of Israel, down with Zionism, down with colonialism. Palestine has the right to exist. No one has the right to exist at the expense of the colonial domination of another. The Jewish voice must be for a one free, independent Palestine, not a two-state solution in which the enslaved are expected to live side by side with their enslaver. There are only two sides, the colonizer and the colonized. It is impossible to condemn both, to say that you oppose the violence on all sides. We will not condemn the Palestinian resistance. We demand an end to the hideous, unspeakable horrors being carried out by the US-backed Israeli terrorists against the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. And we will not denounce the organizations who are leading the resistance of the Palestinian people or condemn their right to use any means necessary to free their homeland from the colonial settler occupation regime that has terrorized them for the past 75 years. We believe further that it is the responsibility of Jews to vocally and loudly reject the cynical, exploitative use of Jewish victimhood or anti-Semitism as what Chairman Omali Yeshitela correctly identifies as an ideological and political weapon of the colonial ruling class that is used to silence, smother, muzzle, discredit, destroy African Palestinians and other people who speak out against Israel and against colonialism. We have seen attacks on Palestinian students, on African students, even Jewish students, such as at Wash U, where a Jewish art student, who I think is possibly in this meeting with us tonight, was targeted by the police for displaying a banner that said, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." There are ruling class publications today, like Wall Street Journal, who are suggesting that the word genocide should be taken out of the vocabulary now, because now the word is being used to describe what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. And in their view, the word genocide was created only to refer to what happened to European Jews at the hands of other Europeans in what is referred to as the Nazi Holocaust, which is elevated in the colonial narrative into a singular, outstanding act of human evil that you can't compare to anything, and you can't even explain it in the context of history. But as the chairman teaches us, the context of history is the only way to explain it. What happened in Germany in the 30s and 40s was that the violence at the heart of European imperialist white power, the violence that white people had committed against Africans and other oppressed peoples for centuries, without a word of protest from Europeans, including Jews, was turned inward against a sector of the European population itself. Germany's first concentration camps were not built in Auschwitz. They were built in Namibia on the far southwest coast, where in the early 1900s, the German government, with the complicity of German Jews, exterminated nearly the entire Herero and Nama populations. It was in Africa where Germany developed all of the methods of torture and extermination later used to target Jews. But at the time of Germany's Holocaust in Africa, there was no word for genocide in the English language. Penny Hess wrote in Overturning the Culture of Violence, quote, "No white people, including Jews, protested when Africans and other colonized peoples were being slaughtered by the millions by European and American powers," end quote. And genocide, the word, was created by a Polish Jew named Raphael Lemkin only after the Second Imperialist World War and the Nazi persecution of Jews. Only then was it adopted by the United Nations with a legal definition of a crime called genocide. Not when King Leopold in Belgium slaughtered 10 to 20 million Africans in Congo. Not when tens of millions of indigenous people in this land were slaughtered by Europeans and forced onto concentration camps euphemistically called reservations. Not when thousands of Africans were lynched, hanged from trees, burned alive, tortured, and mutilated by white terrorists in the US for over 100 years. And when African people took Raphael Lemkin's definition of genocide to the United Nations in the early 1950s and said, "This is what America is doing to Black people in its own borders," Lemkin himself denounced them and said that Paul Robeson and others were working as agents in a criminal Russian conspiracy. The same bogus, slanderous charge being levied today against Chairman Omali Yeshitela for doing the same thing. As Chairman Omali Yeshitela teaches us, this distortion of history takes the Jewish experience out of the context of the colonial mode of production, which is responsible for the killing of Jews in the first place, and places Jews in a dangerous, precarious position of being separate from the rest of humanity. As Jews against colonialism, we are against the use of anti-Semitism as a weapon against African, Palestinian, and colonized peoples. And we denounce the Zionist baby killers who cloak themselves in the Holocaust like a ghastly human shield as they perpetrate a Holocaust against the Palestinians. Chairwoman Penny Hess in the same book later asks, where are the Jews who will use their experience in Germany as an opportunity to stand in solidarity with African and oppressed peoples? The Uhuru Solidarity Movement is that opportunity. Under the leadership of the African Revolution, we can end our self-imposed exile from the human family and in a principled way become one with the struggles of African, Palestinian, and oppressed peoples. We can be a part of the forging of a new, principled, revolutionary, socialist, anti-colonial stance of Jewish solidarity with Palestinian, African, and colonized peoples. We can go beyond sympathy, beyond tears, beyond just calling for a ceasefire as if we want to rewind time back to October 6th to the status quo of Israel's colonial suffocation of the Palestinians. We can join the struggle with the rest of humanity for an end to colonialism and for the liberation of all. This struggle did not begin on October 7th, and it did not begin in May of 1948 with the establishment of Israel, and it did not begin with Zionism. It began with the assault on Africa over 600 years ago, as the chairman teaches us. It began with the birth of the colonial mode of production, that the oppression of African people is the source, the foundation, the cornerstone of the whole system. When the Palestinian people sent messages of solidarity to Africans rising up in Ferguson in 2014, it was because of the recognition that Ferguson is Gaza. But more than that, as the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine said at the time, quote, "The Black struggle leads the world," end quote. It leads the world because the whole colonial world order is built on the backs of African people. That is why we say, as Chairwoman Penny Hess said, that as Jews and as white people in the United States who stand for a free Palestine, we cannot walk over the bodies of Africans, indigenous people, or pass their righteous resistance movements to give what would ultimately amount to empty words of well-wishing to the Palestinians. Without the support of US imperialism, Israel would not last a week. And without the oppression of African and indigenous people, US imperialism would not last a day. The chairman has said, would there be an America without the oppression of African people, without enslavement, without genocide and theft of land from the indigenous people? No, 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 1,000 times no. So for Jews in this country to truly unite with the anti-colonial resistance of the Palestinian people, we have to carry out our front of the struggle here in the belly of the beast, the Palestine right here. We can truly renounce Zionism by renouncing colonialism. And that means facing the fundamental truth that if we're in the US, we are settlers in the largest and most destructive colonial settler state the world has ever known. A colonial settler state also occupied by white people who claimed that God gave it to us, which we stole through extermination of the native people, and which was built on the enslavement of African people. Genuine solidarity requires that we take responsibility for our history as white Jews in relationship to the open-air prison of the United States, where Africans, indigenous, and Mexican people are held in a state of colonial captivity. When Jews left Europe in the first half of the 20th century, most of us did not go to occupied Palestine to join the settler state of Israel. That came later. First, we came to the settler state of the US. Like all other groups of Europeans who fled persecution and poverty in Europe to seek riches and happiness in America, we found our better way of life, the American way, the capitalist way, by climbing up on the backs of African people, on the stolen land of the indigenous people. When Jews came to the US, we ascended from poverty to wealth in one generation, accumulating resources by opening up businesses in Black communities, exploiting the forcibly impoverished, colonized, resource-starved African as a stepping stone to greater success for our communities. We became white through participation in the colonial enterprise of African exploitation. Facing this truth and fighting for reparations is how we take responsibility for this history. Organizing in solidarity with the African Revolution inside this country and around the world puts us in unity with all of the colonized peoples fighting the same enemy, colonialism. So we want to close by saying that some Jewish people will hear this message and say, well, if the Palestinians take back their land, what will happen to the Jews? Where will they go? What will be swept from the face of the earth, from Palestine and everywhere, is colonialism and slavery. What will remain is freedom and those who fight for it. What becomes of the former colonizers will depend on our relationship to the struggle against colonialism, to the struggle for freedom. The same question applies for white settlers here in North America, in South Africa, or anywhere else. Our future will be determined by the stance that we take. So our message to Israeli Jews: let the Israeli government have to fend for themselves. Let Netanyahu, the butcher, have to fend for himself. Their days are numbered. Let's turn our backs on the colonial ruling class. Colonialism is on its deathbed. The future looks like a free Palestine, a free Africa and African people, a free indigenous people, a free humanity without oppression and exploitation. Chairman Omali Yeshitela said recently, quote, "Jews need to turn against the sector of the colonial bourgeoisie that claims to represent the interests of all Jews and join with the struggles of the colonized peoples of the world," end quote. We can have a future, but not at their expense. We can have a future, but only in solidarity with the rest of humanity. That means we have to stand up, get organized under the leadership of the African Revolution, join the working group of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jews Against Colonialism, under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Victory to Palestine, victory to the African Revolution. Colonialism must go. Unity through reparations. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru, Comrade Jesse, thank you for that powerful presentation. Very, very exciting. We're going to be opening it up for discussion, and we're going to go forward. It's my great honor to be able to introduce Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I also want to say that we are requesting to raise $700 tonight. We'll talk about that more. These events are help to pay the mortgage for the Uhuru Solidarity Movement Center. And this is a building owned by the Black Power Blueprint that part of our reparations is being able to raise the resources to actually own this building. So this is what we are raising money for tonight. And you can go to apscuhuru.org/donate to contribute towards that goal tonight. So I just really want to thank again our comrade Jesse for putting out that brilliant and very thorough presentation about the true question of Zionism as colonialism and the principled stand of Jewish people and all white people to be in solidarity with African, Palestinian, and colonized peoples. It is my honor to be able to welcome up Chairman Omali Yeshitela, certainly the most courageous person I know, the most brilliant person I have ever known, and who has taken the ideas and the will to liberate Africa and African people and put it into practice, also explaining the world to change it. Chairman, it is a great honor to welcome you here tonight, Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Uhuru, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much, Comrade Penny, Comrade Jesse, the African People's Solidarity Committee, and Uhuru Solidarity Movement. This is an extremely important discussion that we're having on today. I'd like to also let everyone understand that I am the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, the African Socialist International, which is the African People's Socialist Party as it expresses itself throughout the world. And that our participation here today is part of the struggle that we've been involved in for a very long time for the liberation of our people. I want to start my presentation with an acknowledgement of the passing of Comrade Ralph Poynter. Comrade Penny mentioned Ralph Poynter a moment ago. He's an extraordinary freedom fighter. He died just a few days ago. I think he was perhaps 86 years old, maybe a little older than that. But the thing about Ralph is that anybody who knew him understood him to be a magnificent warrior in the struggle for our liberation, the liberation of our people, and also for the working people of the world. Ralph, even during some of the cruelest moments of his illness, when he was nearly incapacitated, would be involved in the struggle. He'd come on to our meetings in his bathrobes and from his bed and what have you. There was not a moment where he was conscious that he was not engaged in the struggle. He was very, very, very much a part of the struggle for freedom, political prisoners and prisoners of war, Black people who've been locked up in cages for long periods of time for struggling for our liberation and using any means necessary and any means possible to win that. Ralph has been there, and he's been one of the most outstanding fighters for those comrades. I want to acknowledge Ralph because the truth of the matter is that the colonizers, the U.S. government, and others have been so effective in eliminating fighters like Ralph, people who've stood up and fought this struggle against colonialism, that their memories have been erased and that many people do not know of them. And I want to assume my responsibility of acknowledging Comrade Ralph Pointer and saying that Comrade Ralph Presente, that it is with profound love and respect that I want to acknowledge you and say that there are other things we're going to be doing. Ralph Pointer was a member of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. He headed the political prisoner working group, but he was busy on so many fronts. He was an important fighter for education and the rights of African people to be educated, particularly in New York City, but in efforts that extended themselves throughout other parts of the United States. So I just wanted to acknowledge Comrade Ralph and hope that all of you will take an opportunity to learn what you can about this heroic freedom fighter. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be doing some things in the days to come to memorialize Comrade Ralph Pointer. Now, this is an important discussion that we're having, and I just wanted to say that the basis of the participation of the African People's Socialist Party, my participation in this discussion, is that we are working for the liberation of African people. This is a concrete material mission that we're involved in. We are not just involved in this webinar for the purpose of having a discussion. We are not here just to help people understand just how poorly and badly Palestinians have been treated and how poorly and badly African people have been treated and other people like that. The objective is not to simply stand around complaining or jump up and down complaining about our treatment, but to organize to overturn this oppression, this exploitation that we experience every day. And there's nobody, very few people who are alive who can remember a time where the Palestinian people were not oppressed, not exploited. And certainly that is true of African people here and around the world. I think it's important to acknowledge that our objective is to win freedom. And that is to say, we engaged in a struggle against colonialism. Colonialism can be easily articulated as an instance where foreign and aliens have taken over the lives and resources of peoples, whole peoples. And that is something that once upon a time, it was relatively easy to recognize and to understand. We saw movements organized around and against colonialism for a very long time. I mean, Marcus Garvey, more than 100 years ago, succeeded in organizing at least 11 million African people from around the world. But even at that time, the Irish were fighting against British colonialism. And there were other examples of colonialism that people were engaged in taking on. So the question of colonialism at one time was really well pronounced. Even though the United States government succeeded at in destroying the Garvey movement, and that is to say, certainly the organization imprisoning Garvey, deporting him from the United States, creating false charges against him. And you can see some of the documents where FBI agents who had the responsibility spying on Garvey and trying to come up with something to use to deport Garvey to Jamaica, the land of his birth, they would say that we can't find anything against the guy that would allow us to do it. And they were told to go back and to find something. And finally, they did contrive some bogus charge of Garvey having used the mail to defraud the people. And what was this defraud related to? It was related to Garvey's work to neutralize, to negate the colonial domination of African people around the world. It was based on, it was called fraud because Garvey had organized even steamship lines and factories and other kinds of things that would allow African people to be self-employed and to create industry, factories, to be able to engage in trade with each other in Africa, in the Americas, and all of these different places and means by which we would become economically powerful. It was what Garvey did to actually create the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League that he organized, created our own passports, and actually traveled to other countries and sent ambassadors that we created, that Garvey created, to other countries to represent African people. The question of colonialism was something that we understood we were fighting with. And I think it's important to say that at the time Garvey was involved in building organization, that there were other manifestations of the African liberation movement as well. And it's important to say this because there are people who would contend with the notion that Africa is for Africans at home and abroad, and that African people constitute one African nation that have been forcibly dispersed around the world, who would contend with the notion that this land that we are currently working from within, that's called the United States, is a land of the indigenous peoples here, that it was taken from the indigenous people at gunpoint, murdered, genocide, what is now being defined as genocide was committed. And even today, concentration camps exist that keep them, that's called Indian reservations. And people like Leonard Peltier, a native of this land, has been thrown into prison by the colonizers for resisting, for trying to overturn this relationship. The colonial question has been an outstanding question for a very, very long period of time. We understood this in the 1950s. Bandung Conference, where colonized people from all around the world came together in Indonesia. And different states, countries came together in Indonesia to develop a plan to work to overturn colonialism and what was being characterized as even racial discrimination. In the 1960s, we saw the Tricontinental Conference that happened in Cuba, where Africans and other people from around the world, tricontinental, because from Africa, Asia, Latin America, talking about fighting against colonialism, the struggle against colonialism, and actually building an organization, an anti-colonial organization that encompassed much of the world. This existed in the 1960s, and it was really clear that this is what we were fighting to do. And then, of course, as a consequence of the war that was being made against this struggle for our people, for our freedom, this question has been dismissed and been pushed out of the memory of many different people. And one of the reasons it was possible to do this is because the refusal to recognize, especially by white leftists and especially by white people who often call themselves Marxists and things like this, an absolute refusal to recognize that 600 years ago or so, a process began that created a mode of production, that is to say, a social system that was global, not just something that existed in what was previously the fiefdoms in a backwoods, smelly Europe, but not just something that was existing in feudal Europe, or where you had different warring tribes contending and competing with each other, but something happened on that basis. Something happened, and that Europe, that the people who became Europeans became so in the process of striking out from first Portugal, that moved and to the Canary Islands and began the process of of economic expropriation, economic exploitation, where people were enslaved and actually producing sugar as a part of a newly emerged economy, developing economy, and then this same Portugal that would go through other parts of Africa and attack and kidnap African people and begin to process the forcibly dispersing Black people around the world as a part of, and it became a part of the process of erasing our history and our significance as a people. And because when you have this process begun, it is a way that now it's not just a feudal Europe, or feudal England, or feudal France, or a feudal Portugal that we are talking about. We are talking about a whole new world economy. That a new process has begun. A new process has been born. A new consciousness has been born among people who were previously just these fiefdoms, and now they begin to define themselves as Europeans in relationship to the rest of us. Before, they were just Celts and Normans, and before they were just warring tribes that identified themselves primarily in relationship to each other. But now there's a new consciousness, and this new consciousness gets born as a part of the process of enslaving and capturing resources from the rest of us. And this new consciousness was the product of a newly derived world economy. The world is bigger now than some fiefdom in London or Manchester or some other place like that. It's a much larger world that embraces much of the planet. The whole planet Earth is being transformed as a consequence of that. Now there are places that's called the Americas that didn't exist before. Part of a process of exterminating indigenous people and forcibly transferring African people there at gunpoint. Where now we are majority in some places in the Americas, where before it was the indigenous people who were there only. A new economy. So the whole world now is locked up into this economic relationship. And this is how the world participates in the production of life, the production of and reproduction of life itself. This collective process, this socialized process that has brought all of the peoples of the world into a common project. And what has happened is a part of this, as well as the people who were the colonizers came to identify themselves as white. When I say the people, I'm talking about the leaders. I'm talking about the elite. I'm talking about the people, those forces with the ability to now having control of the resources of the people and creating a power that's capable of presiding over this, that's called a state, which is a global state, certainly with different iterations of this global state. Now the whole world is looking at itself through this lens that was created by the oppressor. And you don't have an oppressor ever that is able to denounce itself. You don't have a social system that is able to denounce itself. In fact, it fabricates, it creates explanations for reality that's based on the economic benefits that it gets from the relationships that's now created. And now what has been created is a world economy based on enslaved human beings, stolen labor, stolen resources, etc. And it becomes necessary to remove them from any history prior to the advent, the beginning, the emergence of what is now called the white man, the colonizer, etc. There was no history before the white man. There was nobody living in what we call the Americas when the white man got here. There was nobody in South Africa before the white man got there. There was nobody in Palestine before the white man got there. Erase all of that history and make the history of the world a white man's history, and that is what has happened. And what is crucial about this, African people have borne so much of the brunt of this rearticulation of reality. And African people have been ridiculed and oppressed, and precisely because of the critical role that African people have played in the history of the emergence of the social system, and also because it was Africa and African people who dragged what is now called Europe out of the quagmire of backwardness it was not just human beings that they stole just for labor, but science is what they stole as well. Resources like that, architecture, agriculture, stolen from Africa, and that was part of the process of kidnapping Africans. And we've developed for them at the expense of ourselves. So a whole social system that's coming to existence that is characterized by parasitism. And this was before the struggle that we're involved in now, when we're looking at what's happened to the Palestinian people. What we have is a colonial mode of production, not just a policy of colonialism as that might have been developed by Portugal some 600 years ago, not just a policy that might have been done by some other country at any given time. But now what we have is a process, a mode of production that's locked the entire world into a common process. It is parasitic by its very nature. And this is what we're struggling with. And the fact is that African people have been defined out of history. And so much of what calls itself the white left is locked into this definition of reality. And so what we have is a situation where the colonizers, the white people who are part of the colonizers, who come from these different places, have liquidated their relationship to the rest of the world, of experienced it having being liquidated, have succumbed to philosophies, ideology that based on some insane ideology based on some preposterous presumption of the superiority of white people, because they're white. And we see the emergence of what might be characterized as a labor aristocracy. That's part of what you're looking at when you look at places like occupied Palestine. You've got Jews who have been convinced by a sector of the bourgeoisie that they're separate and different from the rest of the people, and therefore justified in stealing their land and becoming a part of the imperialist project, the colonial project. They have gone into that project, and they have found an interest in that project because it rewards them with resources that haven't existed before. This is what constitutes a part of the opportunism that we are looking at. And I don't want to make any mistake about this, because we've seen some people who have tried to define this thing that they in uniting with some assumptions that we're making about how reactionary the whole anti-Semitic weapon is, and how reactionary Zionism is. They have come up with the analogy that to say that somebody is anti-Jewish because they reject Israel is the same as saying that somebody is anti-white because they reject apartheid in South Africa. But it's still missing the point, because the state of South Africa is a state. It was a white people's state. It was and Israel is a white people's state. Zionism is a philosophy. It's an ideology that arms the Jewish population, that actually seduces the Jewish population into some assumption of superiority over the rest of us. It has this intermix of religious mysticism, falsification of history that characterize the Jews as a chosen people, and I find it very difficult to distinguish a chosen people from a master race, that somehow this chosen people can steal the rest of the resources of the peoples of the world. It's religious mysticism. We are materialists. We look for a material explanation for the reality that we are confronted with. That's why we're having this discussion. Because if we don't come up with a materialist explanation, we can't get our way out of here. We can't even rescue the Jewish working people, the Jewish people, from the terror that is being inflicted on them even today by their bourgeoisie. October 7th, this response by the Palestinian people to their oppression, exploitation, degradation, and what have you, is something that was inflicted on the Jewish population by the leaders of the settler state. Those people who are wedded in bed with the colonizers, with the European colonizers who created this whole social system, created this mode of production. And so, of course, the way out of this is not uniting with the oppressor, but to liberate yourself from the oppressor by uniting with all of the other oppressed peoples around the world. And that's the vast majority of the people. That's the call that's being made to Jewish people. That's the thing that we engaged in discussing on today. And that's not the easiest struggle to be involved in. I just want to say that all of the work that the African People's Socialist Party does is informed by a strategy for liberation, a strategy that makes it necessary to help everybody in the world recognize that this is a material-based struggle that we're involved in, that we are oppressed as a whole people, that we are colonized and a part of the whole world that live under colonial domination with all of the economic and political relationships that we experience having their birth in this colonial relationship. We are here because we have a strategy to win peoples of the world to recognition, first of all, to the fact that African people must be free, not some charitable, we like you because you sing good music or you dribble basketballs or some nonsense like that, but to win recognition that African people have a right and responsibility to be self-governing, self-determining people like all other peoples of the world. But the problem, of course, is that that ideological, the philosophy that's born out of this colonial project is one that has served to undermine the human significance of African people, just like it does with colonized people in general. And that's part of what the whole Holocaust thing is designed to do. So 6 million Jews were killed by the Germans, and that is a horrible, horrible experience. But to say that's the worst or most significant experience that's ever happened in the world is to liquidate the significance of the 100 or more million African people who died as a whole process of the slave trade. It's to liquidate what Leopold did in just a few years in Congo, where perhaps 12, 15 million African people were slaughtered. It is to liquidate and minimize and obscure what has happened to the indigenous people on this territory that we call America. And there is an interest in doing that. Look at Australia, look at New Zealand, look at all these places where the colonizers have come to eradicate whole peoples. And now what they have done is elevate a sector of the white population into this special chosen people, and then make the crimes that they committed against this white people the greatest crime in human history, so that the people who experienced the genocide before it was called genocide, the people who experienced Leopold, there's people who experienced Kit Carson, who was killing indigenous people here in America, the people who experienced all of this murder that goes on every day. These people, the struggle is minimized, obscured, or liquidated. So what has to happen is that this Jewish people must repudiate this relationship that it has with the colonizer. And that's the same thing is true of white people in general. You got to repudiate that. You got to join with the rest of the peoples on earth who want to end oppression, end exploitation. That means that it's going to be uncomfortable to some extent for you, because it means that you've got to recognize that there is nothing natural about your inhabiting this land that's called America. There's nothing natural and normal about your being in New Zealand, that you're being in Palestine, even though you call it something different and call yourself something different. You have to join with the people whose land and resources, lives, genius, talents have been stolen, so that we can create a whole new world, so that the genius and talents of the people who are stolen can go into the arsenal of free people all around the world, creating a whole new world where freedom is natural and normal, as opposed to this mockery, this absurdity, this insanity, this obscenity that has been imposed on the rest of us, and that by the US, by the European colonizers. Colonialism has to go. That means the colonized people have to be free. That means the colonial mode of production must be destroyed. That means right now where we're seeing in Palestine is an instance where colonized people have made a major move that's shaken up the whole colonial mode of production. We have to support that, and we have to recognize that it's part of a struggle that all of us are involved in. We all have stakes in that, and we have to join in the struggle for the liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. That's the road to freedom. The fact is, the road to socialism is painted black. We've always said that. It's true today, just as it was 50 years ago. So thank you very much. Uhuru.
Oops. Uhuru Chairman, thank you so much for that profound presentation. And, you know, I just want us all to be able to really internalize what you have laid out and to be able to break it down and discuss it, you know, tonight and always, you know, even in the future, that we have to repudiate our relationship to the colonizers, that this is a materialist analysis, that Africa and African people are central to this system, that the assault on Africa is what created this colonial mode of production, and it will be the leadership of the African Revolution that will overturn it, and that it is from this colonial mode of production that we even have our identity as white people, that everything comes from this, that I also, Chairman, I really want to unite with your criticism of the white left and the failure of the white left to acknowledge this colonial mode of production and to acknowledge that the assault on Africa was the original sin of this system, this colonial system that we live in, and that the party has a strategy to be free. The Holocaust, the understanding of the Holocaust cannot liquidate the genocide against African and indigenous people that has gone on for centuries prior to white people killing other white people in Europe in the 1940s. Just all of the incredible analysis that you have put out. I want to really call on everybody who's on this event tonight to always tune in to Omali Taught Me, the chairman's incredible political studies that happen every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock Central Time on the Burning Spear channel on YouTube. And, you know, to really jump in, to read the book, The Vanguard, Uneasy Equilibrium, and other writings of the chairman. So thank you so much, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and that profound and really mobilizing presentation that shows us the way forward for us as white people. I also want to acknowledge that what Comrade Alex put in the chat, that the US government was forced to release Alex Saab, who was a political prisoner, a diplomatic, I believe the ambassador from Venezuela, and I believe that he has been released to back to Venezuela, and that is a victory of the people and the struggle for him as a political prisoner. And it was one of the campaigns of Hands Off Uhuru as well. So we salute that victory. So I want to open it up for discussion, which we're just going to have in a few minutes. But right now I want to bring up Comrade Len, who's going to talk about raising the resources tonight and how everybody can participate. And we have some really great other brief presentations and discussion coming up after that. And, you know, just looking forward to that. So Comrade Len, I want to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Penny. I just really want to thank the Chairman Omali Yeshitela, African People's Solidarity Committee Chair Penny Hess, and USM Chair Jesse Neville. This has really just been such a profound discussion so far, a really fantastic webinar. And, you know, I do want to let people know that we will be hearing from a few more guests that will be joining the discussion in a little bit. And we're also going to have a Q&A session shortly. So please submit your questions in the Zoom Q&A feature or on YouTube or the Facebook chat. And before we do that, I just want to take a few minutes to talk to you about how you can get involved in solidarity with African people's struggle for liberation and to support this work. So I just want to start off by saying that we have a goal this evening to raise $700 in reparations for the African People's Solidarity Committee. You can go to apscuhuru.org/donate. And one of the most important things that we can do to stand with the Palestinian people is to join under the leadership of the African Revolution. This is what the African People's Solidarity Committee was created to do. And we want to talk about how you can concretely support APSC, the organization hosting this event tonight, by donating towards our fund of the Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis, Missouri. And the funds that we raise in these web events go to the expenses of the Uhuru Solidarity Center here in St. Louis, which is a building owned by the African People's Socialist Party that APSC is responsible to develop and promote as a real, tangible place in the world to build the movement for white people's reparations to the African community of St. Louis and beyond. And it's also the headquarters for the African People's Solidarity Committee in the US and around the world. So we're just going to take you through a few slides here. So this is the beautiful view of the Solidarity Center from the front entrance on Gravois Ave. And, just really, really beautiful building here. And in early 2022, the Solidarity Movement began hosting events at the Solidarity Center, such as volunteer actions, potlucks, film nights, and different political education studies led by Chairwoman Penny Hess. And there was also a space set up for live broadcasts, which if you caught any of the telethon, some of our telethon was broadcast live from there. And there's also a view here of the main room, which is where Uhuru Planet Reparations apparel and other Buy Black Power products are on display. It's a really beautiful display. And in 2022, the center's grand opening was held, and we had some really brilliant presentations. Next slide. So in July of 2022, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement organized a reparations summer project, which was a several-day intensive, including presentations from Chairman Omali Yeshitela, studies, and outreach that distributed thousands of pieces of literature in the white community in St. Louis. And then it was shortly after that, after the conclusion of the Reparations Summer Project on July 29th, 2022, that the FBI brutally raided 7 homes and offices of the Uhuru movement, including the Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis. And volunteers came out in the days and weeks following to help repair the damage caused by the FBI. Just want to shout out our volunteers. And here's just another photo as well of some of the repairs. And the FBI attacks have not stopped the work of the African People's Solidarity Committee and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And it is critical that we fund the Uhuru Solidarity Center to ensure it remains available as a resource that is open to the community and part of the Black Power blueprint, part of building economic and political power in the hands of the Black community. And here's a photo of USM members and volunteers who gathered at the center to poster for the 2023 USM convention that we had earlier this year. And here is a group photo with the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and some of the participants of the USM 2023 annual national convention at the Aquaba Hall. And some of the work of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement here displayed here at a booth. And this work has continued to grow this year with ongoing outreach and fundraising. And here's just some more pictures. This is comrades Brendan and Jesse at Tower Grove Farmers Market and comrades Lauren and James at Pride this year. And then in August, members of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement organized a dynamic Moving for the Movement fundraiser for the Uhuru Wakulia African Women's Health Center, and it was held at a beautiful performing arts venue in St. Louis. And I just want to shout out Comrade Anya for putting on that wonderful event. And in this next slide, this is a photo from our March for Reparations in St. Louis. USM organized the March for Reparations as part of the annual Days of Reparations to African People that takes place every fall. And here is just another photo from that March for Reparations, really, really powerful. And that was followed by a reparations teach-in at the Solidarity Center the next day. And at the end of November, we held the 24-hour Giving Tuesday Reparations Telethon to raise money for the African People's Education and Defense Fund and their African Independence Workforce Program. Uhuru. So I just want to say that the Uhuru Solidarity Center continues to be a vital resource for people from the white community in St. Louis, coming together to plan and to organize all types of events, and as well as outreach and fundraisers for reparations and solidarity with the Black liberation movement. And we want to call on all of you to contribute to the work of the African People's Solidarity Committee and to the center. And you can do that by going to APSC uhuru.org/donate. And you can make a one-time contribution, or you can also become a monthly sustainer like Michael, like Virginia, like Leah, and so many others who give every single month. And so far, we have already raised $345, and we still have $355 remaining to reach our goal of $700. I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Allie for her $30 contribution, Sandy for her $20 contribution, Janice with 100, Kitty with 50, Chairwoman Penny with 100, Uhuru, Lisa with 20, MQ with 25, Ruby has pledged 50, Jesse has pledged 25, and the new total that we have raised so far is $420. So go to apscuhuru.org/donate to make those contributions. Uhuru. I believe I am now calling back on Chairwoman Penny Hess and
Uhuru, whoops, Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Thank you for that very mobilizing appeal, and thanks to everybody who has contributed. We're almost there. We just need a few more $100 and we're going to make our goal tonight. So just very excited about that. And I'm really excited. I'm going to bring up Comrade Jesse as well, if you want to turn on your camera. So we're going to bring up Comrade Ruby and then Comrade Janice, just to give like a brief 5-minute statement as part of the African People's Solidarity Committee, who are also from the Jewish community, and want to have that, and then we're going to open it up for discussion. And I know we have a question from Comrade Alex Suarez. So so let's open it up to Comrade Ruby. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I just really want to salute this program and all the speakers, and, in particular, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, for leading, this whole analysis of the colonial mode of production and how it affects every person and every single thing that we do in our lives. And I just really want to appreciate, Chairwoman Penny and Chair Jesse for taking this out into the white community. And, I really unite with, the chairman's analysis, and that the way that the party is it's not about talk, it's not just about like our emotions and how we feel about stuff. The party is building on the ground through the work of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, institutions that transform every condition, every aspect of life that the African community faces. And that is what changing the world looks like, and it's happening. And the chairman has led the theory. A farmer's market is nice, but the Uhuru movement has a farmer's market that is connected to transforming the conditions of the world and making food available to impoverished African communities. That is a totally different thing than just a place to get good deals on fruits and vegetables. And these programs transform the conditions in for health, for food, for employment that positively impacts the person and the whole community. And, these programs contend with the colonial mode of production. And I just appreciate being able to be called on here. And, you know, I mean, I grew up in a Jewish family, and I went to one of those Sunday schools that is basically an indoctrination of Zionism. And there was a big map in the Sunday school that had a little teeny weeny little Israel, and then showing these huge expanses of the Arab world, you know, proving that, look, it's just this little thing, you know, can't you give that to us? And we also, you know, one of the main things that we did was we did a lot of fundraising for, you know, like what Jesse referred to, making the desert bloom. We did a lot of fundraising for orange trees every single week. My grandparents had their own orange grove. You know, it was like deeply entrenched in the Jewish community. I went to a Zionist summer camp. I went to, and this is some of the most disgusting things that I probably never told anybody, these parties for Israeli soldiers that they invited all the girls in my junior and senior year in high school to these parties with Israeli soldiers to like entertain them and stuff. I mean, it was just really the most disgusting thing that you can think of. And that was what I got for my graduation present, was a trip to Israel, which I did refuse to go. And I didn't have this level of consciousness that's being talked about in here, but it was the way the people were. I knew I didn't want to go through a whole country of people like that, because like how the chairman said, the thing of the chosen people, it's like an arrogance and a self-importance and an isolation from the rest of humanity. And, you know, I mean, my family, you know, my grandfather had a clothing store in the Black community of Richmond. His father had a delicatessen in Savannah, Georgia, which was a slave port. And this was in the early 1900s. You know, so the resources that I have access to today have blood on their hands. And that, as it has been so eloquently talked about, and, you know, the same way that we are taught to love the red, white, and blue in America, and, you know, I was taught to love the blue and white of Israel, you know, and it is foul. And the thing is that the party and the chairman exposes colonialism, the colonial mode of production, and people all over the world right now are rising up and taking back what is rightfully theirs. And, you know, African people, Palestinian people, and all colonized people have a right to liberate themselves. And that is the liberation for us as Europeans, as white people, as colonizers, is to unite under the leadership of African people here in the US, their struggle to be free and self-determining people by working for reparations under African leadership. And I want a divorce from America. I want a divorce from colonialism. And I want to unite with that positive future that is being built under the leadership of the African Revolution. And, you know, I'm so grateful for this analysis, you know, and being given a way forward, you know, to unite with the African Revolution and a new kind of positive future that will be to benefit for all humanity, that the African working class is leading. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru, Comrade Ruby, thank you so much for that really mobilizing presentation. And before we go to Janice, I just want to thank some more people who have put in some resources. We have Comrade John, who gave $25, Janet Van Fleet, who gave $30, President Matsamela, who gave $20, and Dalal, who gave $50 tonight. Really, really wanted to appreciate that. We've raised $545 in donations and pledges. So we only have 155 more to go. So let's go to Comrade Janice, and then we are going to we have a few questions and discussion that we can open up. Uhuru, African People Solidarity Committee.
Her, Chairwoman Penny, Chair Jesse, I just, so appreciate this opportunity to, be part of this program. And as a member of the African People Solidarity Committee, under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People Socialist Party, I just want to say I'm in complete solidarity with the African, Palestinian, all oppressed peoples of the world. And I just unite with all the deep analysis that's been brilliantly explained by the chairman and all the speakers before me in really powerful presentations. So, it's because of the chairman's theory of African internationalism and the colonial mode of production that I have a place, under this leadership to win reparations and build a new world, truly free of oppression. And I just really salute and thank the chairman for fighting relentlessly for African liberation and for this opportunity to have a principled relationship and be part of, a future for all humanity. And I also really want to salute and thank you, Chairwoman Penny, of the African People Solidarity Committee for, putting on this event, organizing Jews and white people around the world all the time to take a stand against colonialism. And I just, really want to deeply appreciate Uhuru Solidarity Movement Chair Jesse Neville for his really sharp, courageous, fierce stand in speaking for us all. I just, I want every presentation, to be transcribed and handed to so many people, and, I am encouraged by the response from the Jewish community, and I want to contribute to that call around the world, but not for a ceasefire or a change of policies by Israel, but, for a complete end to the, victory to the Palestinian people, destruction of Israel, end to the world economic and political system of colonialism and imperialism that's carrying out this vicious genocide, against Palestinian people, but also African people every day and colonized peoples. So as Jesse said, this is a call for Jews to go beyond protest. And, in a personally, I feel fortunate that my immediate family was not Zionist. I had a very different, experience than Ruby. I was not indoctrinated at an early age, but I did grow up in a Jewish neighborhood, Jewish kids in school, summer camp, but my family was atheist, so they weren't religious, and both my grandparents on both sides, all of them were socialist, communists, so they were atheists, and my parents didn't grow up with religion or Zionism. And as a matter of fact, my family considered Israel kind of like a pilgrimage for religious zealots. I mean, they firmly believed in this separation of church and religion and state so much that, I always refused to say one nation under God in the Pledge of Allegiance because, there shouldn't be God in this. And so to me, a nation and a government that was based on religion seemed absolutely extreme and wrong. And it was definitely not a solution for anti-Semitism. And, we were also raised as Jews that we should be against discrimination, against genocide of any kind, that we should be allies and supporters of oppressed people. But any consciousness or discussion about Palestinians was conspicuously absent. I never had any understanding. I did have a cousin and some friends who visited and lived on a kibbutz for a while, and they were excited about these socialist microcosms, but I could not see how socialism and a state based on religion were compatible. And when I first started learning more about Israel's treatment of Palestinians, it really was put out as this, they're second-class citizens, they're not in the Constitution, it's written in the Constitution this way. So I kind of saw it as how similar Black people were treated in the US. That's how it was put out, it's like this discrimination problem. And it wasn't until I was probably about 20 that I remember learning the true history of the assault and occupation and ongoing violence against Palestinians that was necessary to create the illegitimate state of Israel, as this imperialist outpost of the US and Europe. And it was because the Uhuru Solidarity Committee held an event. It was in either Eugene, Oregon, or San Francisco. It was probably in about 1982 when Israel invaded Lebanon and bombed Syria and was attacking Palestinians and the PLO. And the event was a film showing of this film. I think it was called The Key. And it explained that many Palestinians kept the keys to their homes when they were forced out in 1948. The key is actually like this symbol of the Nakba, the catastrophe, and it was a symbol of their right to return. And so the movie was like this heart-wrenching story of the families, and whole people whose homes and lives were destroyed. They were bulldozed. It showed Christians, Muslims, and Jews had lived together peacefully for centuries there. And it was a real awakening for me to understand the violence and collaboration of the US, Churchill, other European countries with the Zionists, and what it took to create Israel and maintain it today. And it I thought about this carved olive wood candle holder that somebody gave me from a trip to Israel. And I realized like that represented the centuries old olive trees that had been uprooted. I mean, they destroyed the agricultural livelihood of Palestinians, or stole them to enrich themselves. And so it's, like they did with Native Americans, just destroying the agriculture and the ability to people to, be self-sufficient. But most importantly, the discussion after the movie put the whole thing in the context of the chairman and the party's analysis that it was colonialism, not racism or anti-Arab sentiments. That was the root of the problem. I mean, the party was defining it as colonialism back in the 80s, and that's what sets this movement apart. I mean, that's why I joined, because it was really explained the world and my role in it. And I mean, I learned that Zionism was this colonial philosophy recently created. I mean, they had been talking about taking over countries in South America or in Africa, and not all Jews agreed with it, So if colonialism was the root of the problem, then this two-state solution that people were talking about a lot more back then was really just like a liberal cop-out, and it left the real contradiction, unresolved. So, I also learned about the resistance and the organization of the Palestinians for self-determination because of the party, because of the movement, and how they had created their own economic infrastructure to sustain themselves and the revolution and support the PLO and, just like the party. And so it really helped me understand how Jews and other European immigrants had come to the US, and despite, discrimination, travails, were able to make it within a generation. I know, other people have talked about this, the opportunism at the expense of the African community, being landlords or shop owners and profiting from exploitation. And, really made it clear that we're not different or separate from other Europeans, and we have the same responsibility for colonialism and reparations for the benefits and resources we get from the system. You can't say, well, I wasn't there, like as if you weren't, a Southern slave owner. It doesn't matter. You still have these benefits. And so the party's understanding of the whole foundation of imperialism, made it really clear that, as Jews, as white people, we have to take on the liberation of Palestinians and all people by uniting with the African Revolution, which is the cornerstone and the foundation of the capital colonialist system. That taking down this system right here in the belly of the beast and taking on the, reparations of the resources, that is the way we're going to support and do more than protest. So all the work that we do and all the institutions of the African Revolution, of the African People's Socialist Party, are about overturning colonialism, overturning, victory to Palestine, victory to African people. So I just really thank everyone, and want to join, and build this Jews Against Colonialism, and call for people to join that and join the Huru Solidarity movement, and victory to Palestine.
Huru, thank you so much, Janice and Ruby. Wow, that was really powerful, first of all, and to really see that both of you are from sort of different political wings, I guess, of the Jewish community, but yet both of them, liquidated the colonial question, even the one that was supposed to be more, politically open, and how both of you, from these different parts of the spectrum, have come forward to, to accept African internationalism and the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And just really want to salute the tremendous work that both of you do as important comrades working directly under the office of Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela on the economic front of the party. Just really salute you for all the work and just your powerful roles in being in the African People's Solidarity Committee for so many years. So just love you, comrades. Really, really, really powerful. You're welcome to stay on right now. I just want to say, hold on, let me get this. We have some more donors, so I'm really excited about that. And I just want to thank people who have just really, really, really donated. So let me name a few people here. Where did I leave off? So we had Dalal, who gave 50. Oh, just really want to salute Robert Gallup, who's a long, long time. I think you were at the founding convention of the African People's Solidarity Committee in 1976. Really salute you for being here tonight, and just great to see you, to see that you're here, Comrade Robert, and that you had really already become a sustainer to the Uhuru Solidarity Movement at $30 a month, which is so important. So really, thank you for that. That is really incredible and powerful way that, you know, just with you and so many others, that we are able to raise the resources in Uhuru Solidarity Movement for our pledges to the actual work of the African People's Socialist Party and the Black Power Blueprint. Just really want to salute Comrade Lauren, who gave $25. Comrade Lauren, just really support you. Thank you so much for this donation. Really appreciate you as a dynamic member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And Comrade James also gave $25 tonight, also a very important member of Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Comrade Raya, who made a pledge for $50, so powerful. And just Comrade Raya is a longtime member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and also very, very important part of the work under the leadership of the Office of Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela. And Comrade Len, $25. So we are at $670, and we only have $30 more to go. So I don't want to, I know we're running a little late. I would like to have this discussion, Chairman. If you are still there, if you would like to turn on your camera, if you want to join us. If you're still there, I'm not sure if you are, but if you are, you're welcome to come. Thank you, Chairman, for coming back on. So let me just, you know, just want to say some of the questions that are in the chat, actually in the Q&A, and people could add that, but, you know, I just want to go through these, and then we could have a few minutes more for any other discussion. But Comrade Alex Suarez was asking, how can we use the fact that Sephardic Jews in Latin America have been anti-Zionist, like Maduro, who is the president of Venezuela, which I wasn't aware that he was, you know, that he was Jewish, but that he is, you know, took the role of president after the death of Hugo Chavez. So I don't know if, Jesse, if you want to say something about that, or Chairman, I want to turn that over to.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Oh, go ahead, Chairman.
No,
Like
yeah, I was going to say something, because what happened is with the advent of colonial capitalism, that is to say, the social system that was born at the expense of the colonized peoples of the world, and the elevation of this sector of the colonizers, this Jewish population, it was a means by which a sort of labor aristocracy was created of white people who were characterized and defined as white. And so it's like a labor aristocracy that helped to the extent that the Jewish population was able to accept this definition of who they were, and to accept the trajectory that placed them on in contention with the Palestinian people. They became a part of the imperialist project, of the colonial project. They became a conscious, willing part of it. They contributed to that. And so this is the thing we're talking about, a kind of opportunism. They became a labor aristocracy that lived off the sweat and blood of all the colonized people, including the colonized people who were called Sephardic Jews and the ones who come to even now to Israel from Africa and other places who are supposed to be Jewish and what have you, get treated like dogs and et cetera, like colonized people every place else in the world. The colonial project is profound. It is a colonial project that we are talking about. And it is something that gave rise to even to the concept of white people. And so you have this identity and this becoming part of a whole, as I mentioned, labor aristocracy, and separating them from the rest of the workers of the world that Maduro and Trotsky, attempted to represent. So that, and in fact, there was people like Trotsky and Lenin who, came up with the help to define this whole concept of a labor aristocracy. So just because they got a job, and this is something that we hear all the time, that because somebody may be having problems inside the social system, that means that they are part of the struggle against the social system. It doesn't mean that at all. I mean, it's like how homosexuals become automatically, revolutionary by definition or something. And it's just a, really ridiculous characterization. It's a liquidation of any kind of science. And this whole thing about Jews and I would, I appreciate, I think, Comrade Janice's articulation in so many ways, because what has happened is that this whole notion of that Jews are not people, like how the hell, like the laws of social development. I'm a materialist. I do believe that there are ways that you can understand society without mumbo jumbo and obscurantism and religious garbage and stuff like that that's used to cloud the brains of the people. So you're going to say Jews aren't people? And isn't that exactly what the ones who murdered Jews in Germany, were saying, more or less? So Jews have to really fight for their relationship to the rest of the human family. They have to jump off this goddamn pedestal, and there shouldn't be, anyway, I wanted to say that there's more unity with the Sephardic Jew in Venezuela, with the Palestinian revolution, and with the revolutionary project of most people around the world. So I just think that's important. And also, I just wanted to make this comment, and that our party, what we do is strategically driven. The existence of the African People's Solidarity Committee, it wasn't born because we like white people or something like that. We opened up a whole new front in the struggle against colonialism, against oppression, against exploitation. It was an untapped. I'm talking about a time where the white people who call themselves leftists and communists, et cetera, was talking about rednecks when they were talking about other white people, et cetera, and left them to the clutches of the people like Trump and all these other criminals who are out there as folk who could not be, should be ignored and not be, organized, that were not a part of a particular kind of social construct. They are. And so, we open up a whole new front, and we open up this front to everybody who wanted to unite against colonialism. And we didn't care if you like Ray Charles or dreadlocks. In fact, we would use and prefer it if you didn't like dreadlocks and this kind of stuff, but you were able to unite with this contradiction that we are talking about. It's a materialist analysis that we're looking at, So that's the thing. You got to knock down these barriers in the brains that's been imposed on the brains of people. And so this aristocracy of labor that denies, the ability of Jews to become a part of the workers of the world. The whole colonial thing that locks white people in this place where they become not a part of the workers of the world. They are outliers. The white world is an outlier to the whole struggle to change the world. A handful of people, white people, who enjoy their place on this colonial pedestal. The question becomes, they like to raise up this issue of the national question, and usually they're talking about black people or somebody else. The real national question is white people, who usually put the ones who are trying to put the brake on the revolutionary project. And I've seen this everywhere. I've seen this in Venezuela. I've seen it in Nicaragua, where the white left was supposed to come in solidarity with the Nicaraguan revolution. I've seen them be white and colonizers in these meetings where they were supposed to come in solidarity with them. You have too. Some of you in this meeting know what I'm talking about. And I've seen them on the reservations, the concentration camps of the indigenous people, where they're supposed to come to show solidarity with the indigenous. I've seen them be colonizers in those settings. And of course, I know about the white people who love us. This is something we always have to live with. This stuff has got to go. And so, it's possible to create a new world, but white people have to turn that whiteness loose voluntarily or otherwise, because the world is changing despite, this fixation on what people refer to as privilege that white people, seem to enjoy, to be able to have America, to be able to have Palestine, to be able to have Australia, to be able to have all these lands and resources being stolen. That shit's got to go. And it's not going to be comfortable in every instant. Who ever heard of a comfortable revolution? That means that you're going to have to unleash some of this stuff, and join in creating a new world. Join with the rest of us who engage in a fierce struggle to change the world. So I just think that I just want to say that. And I also wanted to really express appreciation to see Comrade Robert Gallup, in this meeting. It's Robert Gallup, who the party first went to California, the person who we sent to California to organize our space there lived with Gallup and his family first. That's where they live. And Gallup is responsible also for me being on a vitamin regimen even today. So I started taking vitamins as a consequence, and a whole array of them, a relationship with Gallup. So anyway, I just want to say that. But when you see the APSC and you talk about how Comrades Janice and Comrade Ruby and others work under the office of the deputy chair doing the economic development work, this is a part of the strategy. This was before there was a Black Power blueprint. Mm-hmm. You understand? It's a part of a revolutionary project. It's part of a revolutionary strategy to overturn the social system, because opening up a market or a store or something like that is nothing. It is in fact, it is a part of a project to overturn the system, to negate the colonial mode of production. That's the thing that gives it significance. And so now we open up this strategic strategy that incorporates Ruby and Janice, and they are working on the Black Power blueprint because of the strategy. The Black Power blueprint has access to them and other kinds of resources because it's a strategy. The Black is Back coalition. That's the strategy that we created to consolidate the unity of an anti-colonial movement with African people after it had been crushed and smashed by the colonial powers. That's a part of a strategy. Everything that we've done has been based on the strategy of strategic objectives of overturning this relationship we have with colonialism. And I think that's part of what's really important to say. And this discussion we're having today is part of that too, because we have to break down the ideological contradictions that people are confronted with, these barriers to being able to see the world as it really is, and make it possible for human beings to have a real relationship with each other without the garbage that the colonizer would impose on our consciousness. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, thank you so much. And I just really want to salute everybody who's still on this event tonight, because I think this is one of the most exciting discussions that we could ever have. And to see a future in which African people, the African working class, and the oppressed and colonized peoples in the world are not about taking charity, are about having political and economic power and self-government in their own hands. And that is exhilarating for everyone. That is exhilarating for us to be part of a world. That's how we break our relationship to the colonizer and to the colonizing nation, as the chairman was saying. And we always said, to jump off that pedestal and stand in solidarity under the leadership of the African Revolution. And so I'm very excited about this. I love this discussion, and this gives us a way to go forward. I did want to just say we had one more question, and it's from Comrade Kelly Keish. And I think it's an important question because it's kind of what we're talking about. So I'm glad you asked this, but it is very important. And it says, does Uhuru seek out communities such as Ferguson? For example, some Jewish congregation adopts an elementary school in need, and they donate items to students at low-income schools. I work at Riverview Gardens Schools, and that area is really struggling. Well, the party doesn't adopt African communities. The party is organizing African people, as I said, for political and economic power in their own hands. And it does have a relationship to Ferguson, because that's where Mike Brown was assassinated, murdered in 2014, and where there was this incredible uprising of the African working class, of resistance. And Chairman, I would like to get your comments on this.
I just want to say that I don't know if Kelly has seen the news article that states that in Missouri, I've forgotten what district it is, that there's prohibition to teach Black history or anything that's just something recently passed and legislated. And to teach any Black history, anything about Black pride, et cetera, it's prohibited. And I'm saying this because I've lived in cities where it was a requirement that the schools allowed people to come in and teach about the Holocaust. It was a requirement that they come in and teach about the Holocaust. I remember when Schindler's List was first put out, and they had a real problem because they showed it. They took the children from a middle school to see Schindler's List, and in the middle of it, all the African students were laughing their heads off, and this was this real sad and horrific kind of story. And it created such a problem that they actually brought Spielberg to Oakland for him to speak to the students to try to win them to accept this. So you can teach reaction in the schools, but they prohibit teaching about Black stuff. I mean, really Black history. It would be illegal for us. We can adopt the school and do some charity stuff, but to do some stuff that helps to explain why the children are poor, and that Black children are poor, and that is a whole different story. And when you teach, when you have Zionists come in, adopting school, teaching Zionist BS, connecting them to a Zionist kind of trajectory, that's reaction, and they will tolerate that, and they will promote that, in fact, because as I mentioned earlier, that helps to obscure and undermine the whole struggle of Black people for freedom. And so the children were laughing, of course, at that film. Yeah, I knew an African teacher at the time, and who talked about how they showed the film, and some of the children in her class were laughing so hard they were rolling on the floor at them, and they said, the teacher was, what the hell is wrong? He said, this happens to us every day. This is what the African students were saying. So Kelly, we have, done stuff at different schools, and most instances we've had to set up schools outside of the schools to deal with those children who you are talking about, because the the greatest attack on them and is the actual education they get in the schools in the first place. But we're not opposed to that. It's just that it's structured in such a fashion it makes it very difficult. We know, for example, there are organizations right here in St. Louis that I know actually do that kind of stuff. And one organization we're really close to that really does that kind of work. But we would have a greater responsibility than just simply, doing charity. The government does that all the time. It drops off food on curbs and right here in St. Louis, you see them out here giving away free food to the poor communities. Our objective is to end the poverty. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you, Kelly. And I hope you will come to other meetings and join Jews Against Colonialism, if that is appropriate, or the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We have many, many things going on, and I appreciate you hanging in there and, and really beginning to embrace the point of view of the African working class, which is very liberating for us as well. I know that, thank you, Chairman, by the way, again, and I really appreciate this discussion. I know we're over time and we have another really important segment here. So I want to turn it over to Comrade Jesse and the other comrades and Comrade Glenn, who are going to be making a call for people to join USM and Jews Against Colonialism.
Thank you, Kelly. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Len.
Uhuru, Jesse.
Wow, this has been an incredible event. And I just want to say that the chairman's presentation was completely brilliant. And also in that discussion, I just really want to thank you, Chairman, for your analysis and for your leadership. And, again, recognize that you have been leading this and saying this for 50 years. And I also want to appreciate Ruby and Janice, who have been members of the African People's Solidarity Committee for decades, for 4 decades at least, taking this stand in principled solidarity with the African Revolution and, just what they represent in terms of what's possible, the stand that we can take, the example that they set. And of course, our chairwoman, Penny Hess. So this has been a powerful event. And what we're going to be talking about now is what you can do, how you can join, how you can be a part of it. And I want to turn it over to you, Len, and just say that Comrade Len here is actually the national chair of membership for the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So Len can tell us a little bit about how you can join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And we are on a mission to recruit 1,000 members to the Uhuru Solidarity Movement in the year 2024. And we need you to be on board with making this happen. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement is all about raising reparations to the African Revolution, raising resources towards the work of the African People's Socialist Party to build the anti-colonial strategy that the chairman just spoke of. And the only thing standing between African people and the ability to build their own economies and their own communities and have self-government is that their resources have been taken from them, are systematically looted from their communities by the colonial mode of production. So every membership in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is a blow against the colonial mode of production, is resources that are transferred back into the hands of the African Revolution. As the party always said, it's reversing the flow of the colonial looting. And it's the transfer of wealth into the hands of those who produced it. So that's what membership means. And Len is going to tell us much more about that and how you can become one of those 1,000 people that will become card-carrying members of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement in this upcoming year. Uhuru, Len.
Uhuru. Thank you, Jesse. And so, yes, if you're not a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, we want to call on you to become one tonight. And you can take this really powerful stance of solidarity by becoming a card-carrying member of USM And this is really the ultimate thing that we can do as white people to get organized under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the African working class, in an anti-colonial struggle for self-determination for African, Palestinian, indigenous, and all oppressed peoples around the world. If you are, against this occupation of Palestine, then, you are also against the occupation and the oppressing of African people and all colonized people around the world. It is the same system that is oppressing Palestinians, that is oppressing Africans, that is oppressing indigenous people, etc. And so tonight we want to win at least 5 people to become members of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Like Jesse said, we're on a mission to recruit 1,000 members of USM by the end of 2024. So right now you can go to uhurusolidarity.org/join. You can become either a general member, which is a one-time payment of $25 a year, or you could become a sustaining member, which is paying reparations monthly. Some of us do that as well. And that is ensuring that that the programs, the anti-colonial programs of the African People's Socialist Party remain funded while the US government is, attempting to silence the Black Liberation Movement, to shut it down. So that it's really important thing to do. uhurusolidarity.org/join, and we can go to our next slide. So Uhuru Solidarity Movement, we have 3 principles of unity. One is that we work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. 2 is that we organize in the white community for reparations to African people. 3 is that we stand in solidarity with African self-determination. So if you unite with these 3 principles of unity, you can become a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And on this next slide, these are just some of the actions that you can be a part of when you volunteer, when you become a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We have different direct actions like different marches in DC and in St. Louis. And then in our next slide here, you can help with postering, you can do outreach tables, talk to other people organizing in the white community, dropping flyers on people's doorsteps, coming to meetings, just being organized in under the leadership of the African Revolution, and organizing for reparations, to the anti-colonial struggle. Next slide. And so again, you can become a member at uhurusolidarity.org/join. Once you sign up, we can set up an orientation with you where you can learn more about the history of the African People's Socialist Party and how you can be a part of the work locally and internationally. And so I will turn it over now to Jesse to talk a little bit more about Jews against colonialism.
All right, thank you, Len. So what we want to say is that if you are interested in joining this working group of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement to take the message of African internationalism, take the message that Chairman Omali Yeshitela put out, take the message of solidarity with Palestine, solidarity with the African anti-colonial struggle, then you should come to the follow-up meeting that we will be holding next Thursday night, Thursday, January 4th at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, 4:30 Pacific. Sorry for the typo. You can join a meeting on Zoom to talk about forming this working group and getting to work, doing some real practical organizing work, beginning with planning an international day of action to mobilize Jews to stand against colonialism, to stand for the liberation of Palestine, to stand for the African Revolution. So that meeting will be Thursday, January 4th, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, 4:30 Pacific. Go to tinyurl.com/Jews against colonialism 2024 to register for that. And go ahead and sign up. And you can also just let us know in the chat if you're interested in being a part of this kickoff meeting, in being a part of building this working group, and being a part of planning the International Day of Action. Join us next Thursday night. And yes, an email will definitely be sent out for that. And we'll be following up with everybody who came to this meeting to get you on board. But again, let us know in the chat if you're interested, and or go ahead and just sign up for the meeting right now to make sure you get that registration link.
True. Yes. And if you see that awesome shirt that Chair Jesse is wearing, Jews Against Colonialism, you can get your very own Jews Against Colonialism shirt at uhuruplanet.com. Uhuru Planet is, reparations apparel. This is the economic institution of the African People's Solidarity Committee. So that's just one of many different designs that you can get. Really awesome revolutionary apparel.
And I see we have Latrice in the chat saying, I'm interested in the working group. That's awesome. We'll definitely be in touch. And last but not least, we want to warmly and enthusiastically invite all of you to come to the USM National Convention of 2024. No more genocide in our name. A call to white people to stand in anti-colonial solidarity with African, Indigenous, and Palestinian liberation Saturday and Sunday, March 9th and 10th of 2024, right here in St. Louis. You can register at nomoregenocide.eventbee.com and go ahead and register. Early bird registration is still open from now until the end of December. It is only $35 to register for both days. And while you can attend virtually, we are strongly encouraging everybody to do whatever you can to be there in person to experience this incredible gathering of the Solidarity Movement every year, where we will have the honor to hear from Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Chairwoman Penny Hess in person at the National Convention. So no more genocide in our name. Come to the National Convention March 9th and 10th, 2024 here in St. Louis. Uhuru.
Uhuru, no more genocide in our name. Just really want to appreciate that. This has been an amazing event. And Comrade Len, what I would like to do is ask the chairman if he had a few parting words, and then have you take us out with a few announcements, and we'll be closing up for tonight. I do want to let everybody know that the African People's Solidarity Committee will be holding events on the last Wednesday of every month. And next month, we will be focusing on the opportunism of the white left. And that's going to be a really profound, interesting, and very informative event as well. So I invite you all to come back next month. So Chairman, could you give us some parting words tonight? This has been powerful, really exciting, and really just appreciate and salute you profoundly.
Well, thank you, Comrade. I just want to remind everybody of a comment that was made by Sundiata Acoli, who was a member of the Black Panther Party, Panther 21, and who was with Assata Shakur on the New Jersey Turnpike in 1972-73, where she was, an attempt was made to kill her, assassinate her, and Sundiata rescued her. And after she had been horribly wounded and he ended up spending something like 54 years in prison. And a comment that he made that I really appreciated tells us something about what it is that we have to do right now. And that was the more sweat in peace, the less blood shed in war. And that revolutionaries have to sweat like rain. And that's what we have to do now. Go to work, do the sweat in peace, so that the outcome of this will not be as bloody as many people are anticipating. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much, comrades. Thank you for being here. Thank you, comrades Jesse, Penny, and other members of the Solidarity Movement who are responsible for making this happen. And I want to again express appreciation from the party, from the Central Committee of the party, from all of us for this great work. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Thank you, Comrade Jesse and Len and Ruby and Comrade Janice and everybody that was on tonight and participated. Just want to turn it over to Comrade Len, who's going to give us some announcements and just say unity through reparations and Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chairwoman Penny. Thank you, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So here are just some announcements. This coming Sunday, December 31st at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, tune in and join the live discussion on the Omali Taught Me Sunday study. This week will be the year in review, so you can tune in at youtube.com/@theburningspear or facebook.com/omali.yeshitela. And as we all have said, fight for free speech. So on Thursday, January 4th, join the next Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition webinar, Fight for Free Speech, Drop the Charges Against the Uhuru 3. Reserve your seat in this online event by going to handsoffahuru.org/register. And as always, we call on people to join the counteroffensive to stop the FBI attacks on the African People's Socialist Party and the African liberation struggle. For more information, go to handsoffahuru.org to volunteer, donate, sign the petition, and sign the emergency response pledge to get text alerts whenever there is a major development in the case and calls to action. And a reminder to tune into the White Lies Shattered series on the Reparations in Action FM radio show and podcast. You can listen Fridays on Black Power 96.3 FM in St. Petersburg, Florida, or get episodes on demand at uhurusolidarity.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Search for White Lies Shattered. And mark your calendars for the next APSC monthly web event. They are the last Wednesday of the month, so that will be January 31st at 6:30 p.m. Central. And for details about any of these events and more upcoming events, you can go to theburningspear.com/events. And now I will turn it back over to you, Chairwoman Penny Uhuru. Oh, you're on mute, Chairwoman Penny.
Uhuru, thank you, Len. And again, I want to say unity through reparations. See you next month and many other Uhuru movement programs. Unity through reparations.
Reparations. Uhuru.